Iran has called on countries to avoid actions that could widen the war in the Middle East. The US and Israel signaling the fight is far from over. Israel's foreign minister says the country is firmly committed with the US to continue the war until the goals are achieved. All sides continuing to trade attacks as the war enters a third week. Iran's foreign minister says Tehran is ready to work with regional countries to investigate recent attacks. Abbas Araghchi says Iran did not target civilian areas and suggested that Israel could be behind some of the incidents. The top Iranian diplomat also says Tehran welcomes any initiative that could help to end the war. Attention also on the Strait of Hormuz, a critical route for global oil supplies. U.S. President Donald Trump is urging countries to help secure the waterway. He called on nations including China, France and Japan to support the effort, though response has been lukewarm. A senior Japanese policy advisor says the threshold for deploying warships is extremely high. South Korea says it will carefully review the request. Iran's foreign minister has insisted that the strait would only be closed to Tehran's enemies. Olly Barratt is tracking this story for CNN, and he joins us live from the Haji Omaran international border crossing in Iraq. Olly, thank you for joining us. Now, tell us what's happening at the Iran border where you are.
Well, this is a crucial border crossing between Iraq, where I'm standing, and Iran, which is just over my shoulder, the other side of that border crossing. And as far as we can tell, this is the first movement you're seeing actually live on CNA through this border crossing in either direction that there has been for the last couple of weeks since the conflict began. This crossing has effectively been blocked, has been shut since the beginning of the conflict. It appears that there is some limited movement now being allowed of freight, like you can see behind me here, but it's also personal travel, it's tourism, it's business, it's supply chains, all of that type of thing. So an important crossing for both countries. In terms of inside Iraq, one thing that we have seen over the last 24 hours, of course, is that strike on the US embassy in Baghdad. That overnight led to the Americans issuing an urgent and updated travel warning for all American citizens in Iraq, telling them that they should leave the country and that if they decided to stay up to this point, they should reconsider that decision, insisting there was danger to Americans because they're being targeted in Iraq by Iran-backed militia in all sorts of different ways. But as I say, here at the Iran-Iraq border, we are seeing the movement of freight and people, it seems, for the first time since this conflict broke out.
Now, Olly, I understand there are new developments around Iraq's plans to restart oil exports through the Ceyhan pipeline. What more do we know?
Yeah, indeed, it is a critical pipeline between the Kirkuk area of Kurdistan to Ceyhan in Turkey. And what the federal government in Baghdad wants to see is hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil per day going through that pipeline and therefore getting to international markets in that way. That would go some way, not all of the way by any means, to plugging some of the gap in Iraqi oil output that we're seeing at the moment because of the Iran conflict. But crucially, it requires agreement between the Kurdistan regional government here in the north and the federal government in Baghdad. And we have not yet reached that point. There are all sorts of reasons. There are tensions over that pipeline route, and there have been in the past. So that is something that Baghdad wants to sort out. But for now, the KRG here in the north don't seem to have signed up to that plan. As I say, that's just one solution that Iraq is looking at to try and boost supplies, boost output to particularly the international market at a time when they are so restricted because of what's going on in and around the Strait of Hormuz down in Iraq's south.
Well, many thanks for that update. Olly Barratt there covering this story for CNN from the Haji Omaran International Border Crossing in Iraq.